right, the Super Bowl is over, and that officially means that it is draft season. I know college football's already been over. We've already had the Senior Bowl, but with the Super Bowl finally over, it is time for draft season. We still got free agency, even that. It's draft season, and this is even a better time for a mock draft. And I've put up my most recent mock draft. You can find it at thehuddlereport.com. But I decided let's go ahead and chat about these picks. And I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get started. Jacksonville Jaguars, they've got the number 1 overall pick. This is Trevor Lawrence. It's not going to be anybody else. I don't care that Urban Meyer used to coach at Ohio State and Justin Fields is there. This is Trevor Lawrence. He's the Jaguars' new quarterback. There's not a whole lot to say. That's who they're going to pick. He's going to start day one. I don't think Urban Meyer is going to have any issues with him as a quarterback. He's coached pocket quarterbacks, and Lawrence is much more than just a pocket quarterback. So this is the pick. Easy pick. Let's move on. Number 2, this is where it gets a little interesting. And it's the New York Jets, and I think they're going to take a quarterback here. As talented as Sam Darnold was coming out, he hasn't shown anything, and he's entering his 4th year. They're going to have to pick up a 5th-year option. I think they're going to trade him off, and they're going to go quarterback here. And I think it goes between Justin Fields and Zach Wilson, and I think I have Justin Fields as my top-rated my second-rated quarterback in this draft. But I think they go with Zach Wilson here. And the reason why I think the Jets go with Zach Wilson is I think he fits Mike LaFleur's system a little bit better than that of Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields. Like I said, he's my second-rated quarterback. But I think Zach Wilson is a better fit. He's got that experience in that kind of zone, rushing, play action. He's got that mobility. I think that's going to be their pick. That's what I think. It could change. And I think Justin Fields would have a lot of success in that scheme. But I think Wilson kind of fits it a little bit better. And that's kind of where I'm going here. Now, if we move to the 3rd pick, there's another pick that could get interesting because would it shock me if the Miami Dolphins took a quarterback here? I know they took Tua last year, 5th overall. He didn't play that well. I think they're going to run it back with him. I'm almost guaranteed they are, but it wouldn't shock me. So I think, hey, the Dolphins, they got Tua. They need to build around him. They used the 5th overall pick on him. I think they still believe in him, but they got to get him weapons. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Mike Gesicki, they're all right, but there's no go-to guy. And that's why I think they go out and get LSU's Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase didn't play this year. He opted out. But what he showed us the previous year, he's big, he's physical, he's fat, he's explosive. And I think he's very comparable to Jalen Waddell and Devontae Smith talent-wise. I don't think the difference between those guys is very big. But I think the size will kind of be what gets him pushed ahead of him and ends up being that 1st overall receiver taken. And I think Chase could give him that number 1 guy, compliment Devontae Parker, compliment Preston Williams, and gives Tua an added weapon. Pick 4, this is where it gets a little interesting because the Atlanta Falcons here with the 4th pick, they've got Matt Ryan, who is locked up for the next several years. But is he their future? They've got a new head coach. Matt Ryan, this head coach, Arthur Smith, came from the Titans where he had experience and talent and success with Ryan Tannehill, who is, a good athlete. And Matt Ryan is more of your in the pocket, sit back and throw. And I think they would like to kind of move off from him, but once again, that contract is there. And so it wouldn't shock me if the Falcons went offensive line here. But I think they're thinking, and Arthur Smith and the general manager, Terry Fontenot, is saying, hey, we've got a talented team. When are we ever going to be picking in the top 5 again? So I think because of that, they go out and get a quarterback in Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, I think, would be a great pickup for the Falcons. Fields is from Georgia. So you're getting the home state kid. He's talented. He has success at Ohio State, leads them to a national championship this past year. Got him in the playoffs the year before. He is a talent, and he is a difference maker. The guy I compare him the most to is Justin Herbert, in the fact that he's a great athlete. He's got, a strong arm. He's a playmaker. He's got a lot of the same traits that Justin Herbert has, and we saw what Herbert did this past year with the Chargers. So I think Atlanta says, hey, he's sitting here. We can't pass him up. He's going to be our future. Let's take him, and we'll worry about Matt Ryan later. And that leads us into pick number 5, Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals last year, they drafted Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow looks legit. The Bengals didn't have a whole lot of talent. They had some decent receivers, but Joe Burrow elevated that team. It was night and day compared to what Andy Dalton had him and what Joe Burrow had when he was there before he got hurt. And even before Joe Burrow got hurt, the thing was, hey, the Bengals have to protect him. They invested. He looks like a guy that could be a franchise quarterback. He's going to be their franchise quarterback. They got to protect him. So what do you do here at pick 5? They go get the talent. They go get Penei Sewell, the left tackle out of Oregon. Some have called him a generational offensive lineman. He's probably the best tackle we've seen in the last couple of years. I know that's what I think. I know others will say, he was like 3rd or 4th in last year's draft. I think he's got sky-high potential. You put him at left tackle. You have Jonah Williams, who was your left tackle last year. You can move him over to the right-hand side to right tackle. You can move him inside the guard. Jonah Williams has played those positions before, and you just you make your offensive line that much better. All right, pick 6. This is the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is going to be interesting. And I didn't, in this mock, I didn't do any trades. So I didn't have Carson Wentz being traded and the Eagles having a pick later on. So at this point, I'm assuming Carson Wentz is back, and it very well could happen. But regardless of whether Carson Wentz is back or not, the Eagles need weapons at receiver. They drafted Jalen Reagor last year. Okay? He looks like he's going to be a solid receiver. I wouldn't say he's, an elite guy, but looks like he's going to be a solid receiver. But they need more help. Alshon Jeffrey isn't the same guy that he used to be. They got a couple guys. Greg Ward's played okay. Travis Fulgham looked like a guy that's going to be a quality starter. They need that elite guy, and that's why I think a guy like Jalen Waddell would be a great pick here from Alabama. Now, Devontae Smith is still there. Devontae Smith won the Heisman. I know a lot of people like Devontae Smith. I like Devontae Smith, but I think Jalen Waddell is a better receiving prospect. He's actually my number 1 receiving prospect in this draft. Explosive speed. I thought he was a combination of what Jerry Jeudy was last year and Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs, speedster. Jalen Waddell, I think he's just as fast. Jerry Jeudy was an elite route runner. I think Jalen Waddell is an elite route runner. I think he is a combination of those two guys. I think he, even with his ankle that he came back from and played some in the national championship game, he is an absolute stud. Gives the Eagles that explosive weapon that they've had in the past with Deshaun Jackson, and gives whoever their quarterback is, whether it's Jalen Hurts, whether it's Carson Wentz, whether it's Nick Foles, who knows, gives them a true playmaker at that receiver position, something that they haven't had the last few years. All right, pick 7, Detroit Lions. This is where it gets a little interesting. Detroit Lions trade away Matt Stafford. Trade him away. He's gone. And they got Jared Goff. Now, conventional wisdom would say, hey, they got Jared Goff. They're doing a rebuild. They're just going to take best available player. I don't think that's the case. I am not ruling out quarterback here, and that's why I have the Detroit Lions at pick 7 taking Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. And I think Trey Lance is the perfect fit for what they want to do. If you look at anything that their organization has said, the new coach, Dan Campbell, they want an athletic, strong-arm quarterback. Trey Lance is both of those things. Now, the thing about Trey Lance is he's ultra-talented, but he's still a work in progress. He played only 1 year at North Dakota State. Now, this would have been his second year. He was a redshirt sophomore, but because FCS moved to the spring, he played 1 game in kind of a showcase, and now he's in the draft. he still has some work to do. And I think with Jared Goff, the Lions, if this is the guy that they really like, they don't have to rush Trey Lance out on the field. They got Jared Goff for year one. Go the Patrick Mahomes route. Let Trey Lance develop and learn from Goff, learn from the coaching staff, and develop. And then year two, Trey Lance becomes the starter, and you got Jared Goff as your backup. And the way that Jared Goff's contract is set up, they can move on from him after year two. So you get Trey Lance, you develop him that first year, and then year two, he becomes your starter, Goff, your backup, and then you can move on from Goff after that. All right, pick 8, Carolina Panthers. I have them taking Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida. I think Trey Lance is a name that you could watch there with the Panthers. They were active in the trade market. They inquired about Matthew Stafford. They inquired about a few other guys. I think they feel comfortable with Teddy Bridgewater, but they're looking for that next guy. And I think there's someone to kind of keep an eye on, especially with Trey Lance. Okay? I'm sure they'd love to get Justin Fields or Zach Wilson as well. But in this case, I'm not doing trades, so they get what falls to them. And I think without getting a quarterback, they just look to continue to add pieces to this offense. And Kyle Pitts is listed as a tight end. He is a tight end. I did a film review on him, and it showed that he's not an elite Rob Gronkowski type blocker, but he's functional enough. The guy I compare him to is Darren Waller for the Raiders. He's that athletic former receiver into tight end, and just a true playmaker at that position. Working the middle of the field, working, the underneath, throwing jump balls to whoever the Panthers quarterback is, probably Teddy Bridgewater in this case. He gives them another weapon. You pair him up with the guys that they've had, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. It just gives this offense even more explosiveness, even more weapons, and I'd love to see Kyle Pitts work with Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator. Moving on to the pick 9, I have them taking Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State. I know, this is kind of, I think, at the top of where Micah Parsons goes. I know a lot of people really like Micah Parsons. I do too. I'm just not ready to go all in on him, and I think the top 10 is a little rich. So this is like I almost didn't put him here just because he's an athletic freak. He can do a lot of things. I just kind of question some of his recognition skills. Did a film room breakdown on him, and there were several times where he just struggled to make that read and turn it loose, and he would kind of hesitate, and it would cause him to miss some plays. You kind of put him more off to the edge and just let him run free, and that's where he had most of his success. But I think the Denver Broncos would be an interesting spot for him because Vic Fangio has known to have, elite linebackers. And every stop that he's had, he's drafted, they drafted Roquan Smith when he was in Chicago. They had Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis when he was in San Francisco. Comes from the Baltimore Ravens where they always had good inside linebackers. So you see with the Broncos, would they look to add a guy like Parsons and then develop him? And I think he's a guy that can be developed. And if he goes to a Fangio defense and works with him, I think he can do that. And Fangio wants his linebackers to do everything: play in coverage, run and chase, attack and blitz. And Micah Parsons can do all that. All right, rounding out the top 10, we have the Dallas Cowboys. And offensively, they seem set. The offensive line could be an issue. I could see them taking a Rashawn Slater here, but instead, I looked at them drafting someone in the secondary. And Virginia Tech's Caleb Farley, I think, would be a great fit for the Cowboys. They're going to be running a Seattle-style cover 3 defense with Dan Quinn as their defensive coordinator. So the big, physical, fast press man corners, and that's what Caleb Farley is. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got ball skills. He's got everything you'd want out of this press man coverage. And you pair him opposite of Trayvon Diggs, who really came on, especially at the end of last season. And now the Cowboys have 2 young, fast, physical corners to go with DeMarcus Lawrence, who hopefully can flip the switch back on, with Randy Gregory, with Aldon Smith, with their fast linebackers. And this defense, I think, making this switch to that defense, adding a guy like Caleb Farley, can really, I think, turn this defense around a lot faster than people maybe think that it could be. All right, if we go into the teens, pick 11, New York Giants. To me, they've got to add a weapon. The Giants really kind of hit their stride at the end of last year. Daniel Jones is continuing development. He looks like a guy that's, he's never going to be a Tom Brady, Drew Brees type quarterback, but I think he can be that borderline top 10 quarterback in the league. You're getting Saquon Barkley back. The offensive line seems to kind of be gelling. They need weapons. They need people on the outside. And I think in this situation, Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner from Alabama, is available. Go out and get him. Get some explosiveness. Get some big playability with Devontae Smith. You can move him around. You can play in the slot. You can play outside. You've got other pieces there too. Get Daniel Jones a weapon. All right, picking 12, I have the San Francisco 49ers taking South Carolina cornerback J.C. Horn. The 49ers are a team, they've got some holes, and cornerback is one of those issues. Richard Sherman is hurt, is going to be back, but they could use someone opposite of him and someone to eventually take over that role. J.C. Horn is a tremendous athlete. He's got good size, good length. I think he'd be a tremendous fit in this cover 3 scheme that the 49ers are going to continue to run. And, pair him opposite of Sherman. Let him learn. Let him, learn from those guys. And I think he's got a chance to be that number 1 corner when Sherman eventually does retire. Picking 13 is the Los Angeles Chargers. And the thing about the Chargers is they need to build and draft and use free agency to continue to put Justin Herbert in a chance to succeed and a chance to continue his development. He had one of the best rookie seasons we've seen out of quarterback in years. And you got to keep that momentum going. And so they've got weapons in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry and Austin Eckler at running back. So let's protect him. Offensive line-wise, they traded away Russell Okung before last year to the Panthers for Trey Turner, who's a guard. They had Brian Bulaga playing left tackle, who had been a right tackle with the Packers for all those years. Let's go out and get a left tackle. Rashawn Slater is still available. Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, another guy who opted out of the season, didn't play this year. But if you look back at his 2019 tape, he looks like an elite level offensive tackle. His battles with Chase Young, you go watch that Ohio State game, and he held his own and probably protected against Chase Young better than any other offensive tackle in college football did. He's quick. He's got great lateral agility. The only knock on Rashawn Slater is he's 6'4". He's not 6'5". He's not 6'6". He's not 6'7". So he's not got that elite height, but I think his lateral agility, his athleticism, his strength, it covers all those and eliminates those issues about the height. I think he's a guy that could be a top 10 pick. There's some people that like him better than Penei Sewell. I like him a lot. I don't like him that much, but I think he's a guy that, it wouldn't shock me if he's a top 10 pick. So getting him here at 13, I think is a steal at this point and would be a great pick for the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, pick 14, the Minnesota Vikings. I have them looking to address their defense. It seems weird that a Mike Zimmer coach team had such poor defensive play, but when they lose Anthony Barr, you lose Eric Kendricks to injury. The cornerback situation was hurt all year. They were playing street free agents. And, of course, a free agent acquisition, Michael Pierce, opted out. So they could use some interior line play. And I think Alabama's Christian Barmore is a guy that could definitely fulfill that role. You pair him up with Michael Pierce. You got a strong interior defensive line. Barmore really kind of, I think, burst onto the scene in the college football playoff, and against Ohio State, he was practically unblockable. And I think a lot more people are starting to become familiar with his game, and so I think he gives the Vikings a strong presence in the interior, something that they desperately need. All right, pick 15 is the New England Patriots, and I have them going Patrick Surtain Jr., cornerback out of Alabama. Now, cornerback has been a strong suit for the Patriots. However, if you kind of look deep into their cornerback position, you got Stephon Gilmore, who's making big money, whose contract is going to be coming up soon. Are they going to continue to, is this the Bill Belichick mode where they get him, he's great for him, but his contract's up, so they move on from him? J.C. Jackson's another guy whose contract's coming up. You got Jason McCourty, who's getting older. They could use some youth in that secondary, and I think Surtain, it would be a perfect fit for this Bill Belichick defense. He could play in the slot. He could play outside. He's tough. He's fast. He's a do-it-all, and he's actually my number one rated corner. I think he could be the first corner. I wouldn't be shocked if he went 9 to the Broncos. I wouldn't be shocked if he went to the Cowboys at 10, especially over guys like Caleb Fairley and J.C. Horn. I just think, things happen, and cornerbacks fall. Marshawn Lattimore, I thought, was a top 3 player a few years back. He falls to 11. So I think corners could fall, and I think if he falls to the Patriots, they'd be ecstatic. Belichick, I think, his versatility, his skill set, his lineage, would do backflips to get Patrick Surtain Jr. All right, midway mark, pick 16, the Arizona Cardinals. I am taking Virginia Tech left tackle Christian Darrisaw. Now, last year there was a lot of smoke, a lot of talk that the Cardinals could take Jedrick Wills, put him in at right tackle, and give their offensive line some help. And they passed. They went with Isaiah Simmons. And I think the mindset for them was, hey, we got Kyler Murray. Let's kind of follow the Seahawks mode of not really investing heavily in elite offensive linemen because we got a quarterback that can elude them. And I think that's kind of what the thought process they went into with last year. And I think it backfired because Kyler Murray got hit and he got hurt. And after Kyler Murray got hurt, it changed the whole dynamic of that offense. It took away a lot of Murray's running ability, and it changed their offense, and they weren't as effective as they were in the first half of the season. So I think the Cardinals are going to look at that and say, we need better offensive line play. We need to invest in it to protect Kyle Murray because he's not very big. Those hits are potentially more damaging. So Darrisaw's a guy that I really like. He's my third-rated offensive tackle. He's athletic. He's long. I think you put him in at left tackle, and it gives Kyler Murray more time, more protection, and I think that's going to be better for him because I really like watching Kyler Murray play. I want him to have success. I want him to be healthy, and so I'm sure the Cardinals feel the same way. All right, pick 17, the Las Vegas Raiders. I really think they're going to look to find some edge pass rushing help. And a couple of things that we've noticed with Mike Mayock in his drafts is, especially early, throughout the draft, he likes to take players from winning college football programs. Clelin Ferrell came from Clemson. Josh Jacobs came from Alabama. He's taken a bunch of Clemson guys. He's taken a bunch of Alabama guys. And so that's something to kind of keep in mind. But like I said, I think they need edge rush help. And the guy that's sitting out there that I think would be a good fit for them is Miami's Greg Rousseau. And Miami is not a winning college football program, but let's also not forget that Mike Mayock took Jonathan Abrams, who came from Mississippi State, in the first round. So I think he likes to do that, but I don't think he's going to pass up on certain guys because of that. And Rousseau's another guy who opted out this past year. He only has 1 year of college football. He only played his redshirt freshman year at Miami, but during that year he was tremendous. 15 sacks as a redshirt freshman. He's 6'7". He's got good length. He's a good athlete. I think that gives the Raiders a different type of edge rusher than what they have. Clelin Ferrell's more of your physical, 5 technique, attack and win at the point of attack. You got Max Crosby, who's going to outwork you, who's going to win with technique. You need an athlete guy, and I think those three can complement each other. And I think Rousseau, if he would have had another year like he put up this year, I think we might be talking about him as a top 10 pick. But because there's only 1 year of production, he took a year off, and there's just more question marks, I think he slides down, and I think that would be a great fit for the Raiders there at 17. All right, pick 18, I have the Miami Dolphins taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. And this is the Dolphins' second first-round pick, so I had them going wide receiver first. I think they could continue to add to that offense, maybe take an offensive lineman here. But I just look at their linebacking core, and I say Owusu-Koramoah would be a perfect fit for what they want to do. In their defense, Brian Flores' defense this past year, they have really good corners that want to get up on you, play press, and they want to pressure and get penetration to force quarterbacks to throw quickly and allow their defensive backs to make plays. Well, to do that, you need versatile linebackers that can cover a man, that can blitz, that can do a lot of different things, and that's why I think Owusu-Koramoah is a perfect fit for Flores' defense. You know, here's a guy at Notre Dame who kind of played a hybrid safety linebacker position. A lot of times he was lined up in the slot covering wide receivers and covering them pretty well. He's got the ability to blitz. You know, he come in and be a stacked linebacker and fill the hole. I think Owusu-Koramoah would be a guy that really fits with what they want to do, and it gives them that versatility, and that's why I think at pick 18 it's a perfect fit. All right, at 19, the Washington football team. I have them taking Tevin Jenkins, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State. And I think this is a pick to replace Trent Williams. They traded away Trent Williams last year to the San Francisco 49ers. They drafted Sadiq Charles who in the second or third round, day 2. And they thought he was going to be the replacement for Trent Williams. And Charles is a guy that's got a lot of talent but had a lot of question marks, and he continued to have those question marks this year for the Washington football team. So I think they maybe think, hey, let's kind of maybe move him into guard where his size would kind of make him a better fit. And let's bring in Jenkins, who's another guy that a lot of people really like, one of the top tackles in the class, and kind of be that blindside protector. I think they'd love to get a quarterback. I don't know if Mac Jones is that guy. And, you know, they've been rumored to be in the trade market for Stafford and those guys. You know, maybe they move up. I just don't know if they have the ammunition. They're kind of stuck in this middle. So if they get kind of stuck without in that quarterback range, I think Jenkins would be an offensive tackle, would be a good fit for the Washington football team. All right, getting into the start into the playoff teams. Usually, 20 is the last non-playoff team, but this past year with two additional teams, we have the Chicago Bears picking 20. And much like the Washington football team, the Bears are in this quarterback limbo. They need a quarterback badly. They're rumored to go after Carson Wentz. They're rumored to go in a few different places. They're kind of far back. They'd have to make a big jump to get one of those top 4 guys. Mac Jones, I think, is a potential here. I just don't think they go that route. So if they're stuck here picking, I think they go offensive line help. Alex Leatherwood is a guy that I really like. Multi-year starter at Alabama. I thought he was one of Alabama's best offensive linemen, and that's saying a lot because they got a lot of good offensive linemen this year. An athletic tackle who I think improved this year physically. The Bears looking to kind of maybe save some cap room, so if they're going to go and trade for a quarterback, I think they could probably need to free up some cap, and so that could lead to Charles Leno, their left tackle, being cut. And so that would open up this need for one, and I think Alex Leatherwood would be able to come in, start at left tackle, and be able to help protect whoever is playing quarterback for the Chicago Bears. All right, pick 21, Indianapolis Colts. Another team just like the Bears in the quarterback hunt. Carson Wentz, Matt Stafford was a name that they talked about. I just think with the Colts, they're going to be a team I think is left in the dust just because I think quarterbacks would love to go there. But Chris Ballard, their general manager, I don't see him trading away the farm to get a veteran quarterback or to move up. I could be wrong, and I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong if I am. But I think they lose out because they're not willing to mortgage the future for the guy. And so I think they're going to sit here at 21, still needing that quarterback. And I think they fill it in this situation with Mac Jones. Now, I'm not in love with Mac Jones going in the first round. However, in this draft, you've got 4 elite guys, and then I think Mac Jones is in that tier right below them all by himself. So I think a team in the 20s or someone looking to get a quarterback in the 20s, I think the only realistic option there is Mac Jones. And so I think normally he'd be like a second-round pick. I think he's going to get pushed up into that first round by a team that maybe struck out in a quarterback in free agency or a trade, and they feel that Mac Jones is their best fit. Now, and this isn't no slight on Mac Jones. He was able to come in last year for Tua Tagovailoa and play well, and then he upped his game this year as the full-time starter. But to me, he's more of a distributor. To borrow a phrase from Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah, Mac Jones is the ultimate trailer. He needs guys to pull him along. And I think the Colts would be a great fit for that. They've got a strong offensive line and running attack with Jonathan Taylor. You've got weapons in Michael Pittman, who I really like, T.Y. Hilton. And all Mac Jones has to do is do what he did at Alabama and just distribute the ball to the playmakers. And he was very well at that. He's accurate. He can throw with timing. He's got a good mental side of the game. And I think he can distribute that ball, be a point guard, and have a lot of success with the Colts. All right, moving on. Tennessee Titans. I have them taking Georgia outside linebacker Azeez Ojulari. Now, with the Titans, they were a team that I, last year, and so far this year, have mocked them edge pass rusher every single time. Just because that's one of their biggest needs. That was one of their biggest needs going into last year's draft, and they didn't take anyone, hoping that Vic Beasley, their free agent acquisition, would fill in that role opposite of Harold Landry. And he wasn't able to do that. I know they drafted Jadeveon Clowney, but to me, he's more of a defensive lineman. And I think the Titans say, hey, let's let someone fall to us if they fall. I don't think they're going to reach. I don't think John Robinson's a guy that wants to reach for players. But I think Ojulari's a guy that would be a good fit for what they want to do. And I think he's a good complement to Harold Landry because it gives him another speed rusher. You've got Jeffrey Simmons. You've got, it sounds like Jadeveon Clowney's going to probably re-sign with them. You got Harold Landry. Get another speed guy out there. And get an explosiveness. You got Harold Landry, who's got the speed off one edge. Make the offensive line try to block another speed guy. And you got the power inside, the speed on the edge. I think it'd be a good fit for what they want to do. And I think Ojulari would be a quality pick there. All right, moving on to the Jets. And this is the Jets pick from the Jamal Adams trade from Seattle. And I have them taking quarterback with Zach Wilson, number 2. So now let's get him weapons. One of the biggest issues I've had with the Jets under their previous general manager, Mike McCagan, and the whole issue surrounding Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold never had any weapons to throw to. Just this past year, Brashad Perriman and Quincy Enunwa, he just never had anyone to throw to, and they drafted Denzel Mims this year, and I like Denzel Mims, and he showed flashes when healthy, but the Jets need to add more. And so I think with their second first-round pick, I think it's going to be a receiver. And the guy to keep an eye on is Kadarius Toney from Florida. Kadarius Toney was kind of a running back, wide receiver hybrid a couple years ago, kind of, didn't really have a role, and then this year he really developed and took that next step. And became a huge playmaker for them. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl. And it probably has the best performance the whole week out of any wide receiver. Shows route running ability, shows that quickness, that athletic ability, the explosiveness. With the Jets, you got Mike LaFleur. You're going to run that Shanahan-style offense. Crossing routes. Get the ball to your receivers in space. You look at what the 49ers had with Deebo Samuel, and they drafted Brandon Ayuk. I think Kadarius Toney can have that same type of impact that Brandon Ayuk had. Give him the ball in space, get him on crossers, use his speed, use his route running, and get him the ball. And I think you got a guy in Zach Wilson who fits the scheme, and I think you got a guy in Kadarius Toney that fits the scheme, and start building up this offense with weapons. Moving on to pick 24, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have them taking offensive tackles Samuel Cosmi from Texas. Offensive line is an issue. Right tackle was an issue this season. And then Alejandro Villanueva is going to be a free agent. So whether they re-sign him or not, I think offensive tackle is an area of need. Go out and get one of the better tackles. This is a deep tackle class, and you're going to see a run on guys in this late first round. I've already had Tevin Jenkins, Alex Leatherwood go 19 and 20. I think, you got Cosme here, and you got a couple other guys that could definitely go in this late first round. And I think the Steelers, they've got their backup quarterback in Dwayne Haskins. They've got receivers. They've got a strong defense. Build up that offensive line. Ben Roethlisberger, he was able to have a solid year this year. It really helped the Steelers have a good year, but he kind of took more hits, and he's not the same Big Ben that he used to be. He needs a little bit better protection. The Steelers' offensive line, I think, took a step back the last couple of years. Get some help. All right, moving on, pick 25. I have another offensive tackle going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is their second first-round pick. This comes from the Los Angeles Rams in the Jalen Ramsey trade. So I have at pick 25, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Dylan Radnans, the offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, another guy who, at the FCS level, blocking for Trey Lance, showed that he could be a dominant and dominated FCS defensive ends. And so he's got a big question mark going into him. And the good thing about that is he goes to the Senior Bowl. He gets a chance to face off against Power 5 defensive ends, some of the best senior pass rushers in the draft, and he holds his own. He shows that he belongs. And the Jaguars need offensive line help. Cam Robinson's played all right, but his skill set is probably more inside at guard. And with Urban Meyer coming in as the head coach, they're going to run more of, with Doug Marrone and before that with Tom Coughlin, they wouldn't be ground and pound with Leonard Fournette. So it made sense for Cam Robinson to be that left tackle. But I think in Meyer's scheme, he's better suited maybe for that right guard. You think of the Wyatt Davis, what he has been at Ohio State, and you get more of an athletic guy at left tackle, and I think Radnans would be a good fit there. All right, pick 26, Cleveland Browns. I have them taking a cornerback, Aaron Robinson out of Central Florida. Robinson's a guy that I've been hearing a lot of things about, and so I was excited to finally watch him, and I loved him watching him. He's physical, he's big, he's fluid, and Central Florida this past year kind of used him more, at least the games that I watched, inside as kind of the slot corner. And he would follow guys. He'd play some on the outside. He would cover tight ends. And he was physical. He'd come off the edge. And he was fast, fluid. And I think when I watched him, I said, hey, he's a cover 3 press man corner. That's where I think he's best suited. Well, Cleveland Browns, they run a Seattle-style cover 3 defense. And they could use some help opposite of Denzel Ward. You got Denzel Ward, you got Greedy Williams. You could use that one other corner. And I think Robinson would be a good fit for them because eventually I think he's going to be that outside corner. But because he's got that versatility and that experience inside, you can kind of move him around. And you can move, Denzel Ward's a guy that can play inside in the slot too or on the outside. And you can kind of just put them in the best chance to have success. And I think the Browns, they don't have a whole lot of areas of need. And they're a team that's on the rise. If Baker Mayfield can continue to play like he did this past year, they continue to add some pieces. The Browns are in a great spot. All right, pick 27 is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, when I look at the Ravens and I look at this offense, they need to fix their passing attack. The Ravens have, and Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator, has done a tremendous job of building their rushing attack. They've got some of the best run concepts we've seen in years. However, their passing game concepts are some of the worst in the NFL. And they need help. And they've invested a lot of their draft capital in building this offense by adding speed to the receiver position. And I think their whole philosophy was, hey, we've got Lamar Jackson. We're going to be a run-first team, and we want to build our run off of play-action pass and using our tight ends over the middle and our receivers to run deep. And you got Marquise Brown, You've got Miles Boykin, and they need some help. And I like Lamar Jackson, but the issue with him, he's not overly accurate. And so what they need to do and what they're lacking is those contested catchers. And as good as Mark Andrews is, he's not much of a contested catcher. He's not going to go up and win a lot of jump balls. He's more of a run and catch tight end, and that's what he is. And he's very good at it. But the Ravens, in my opinion, need a receiver that can go and win the contested catch. And that's why I think Rashad Bateman from Minnesota here would be a good fit for them. Bateman's a guy that can do a lot of really things really good. And one of those things is going up and win those contested catches. So a guy like Lamar Jackson could hit him on slants, but also, deep routes, digs and inside moves. And Bateman's got that ability to go up and get the ball. And so Lamar can, hopefully could trust him, can get that ball up there and give him someone that can win on third down. One of their biggest issues is Lamar struggles to make those third and long throws, third and medium throws, whatever they may be. And I think Bateman would be a guy that could really help out in that area. Moving on to pick 28, the New Orleans Saints. I have them taking pass rusher Kwity Paye from Michigan. The Saints defense is continuing to evolve. I remember 5-10 years ago that their defense was a joke, and they've invested a lot in it, and it's gotten better. But I think the defensive line is yet another position that they could continue to add to. You got Cam Jordan. You drafted Marcus Davenport a few years ago. You got Sheldon Rankins inside a defensive tackle. Let's get him another pass rusher. And Kwity Paye is a guy that I think would be a good fit because I think he can kind of move him around. And he's not just a guy you line up on the edge. You could put him out wide on the edge. You could put him on the shading the tackle. You could even move him inside at times. And it just gives them more pieces. And they got 3 good pass rushers. I mean, if I look at the Saints, and they got Sheldon Rankins, Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, and Kwity Paye all coming. Those 4 guys rushing the quarterback on obvious passing downs. I don't want to block that. All right, going on, pick 29. The Green Bay Packers. It'd be very easy to mock a receiver here. I did it all the time last year. I don't think they're going to take a receiver. I think they feel very confident in Alan Lazard and Marcus Valdez-Scantling, and obviously you got Devontae Adams. So I think the notion of, hey, they're going to take a wide receiver, I don't think they're going to do it. I think they like the guys that they have. So I look at defense. I think linebacker could be an issue, but I think they go defensive line here. And I think they take Iowa's Davion Nixon. And Nixon's a guy that really, former JUCO guy, came to Iowa and really had a huge year this year. And he's a versatile piece. He's got the ability. He's got good lateral agility. He's got good strength. With Iowa, he played the left defensive tackle, and they had him kind of shading the guard at different techniques. Going to the Packers, I think would be a good fit for Nixon. And they're going to continue to run their 3-4 defense, and they've got Kenny Clark, who's a stud. They've got some other guys that are just kind of there, and they kind of had to rely on Kenny Clark quite a bit, and he needs some help. And I think Nixon would be a good guy for that because he can play all over the defensive line. He can play out at the 3 technique. He can play at the 1 technique. He can play head up on the guard. He can, play in the gaps. And I think his ability, his lateral agility, his strength allows them to do a lot of different things, and that frees up their pass rushers, it frees up their young linebackers, and I think he's just a great fit for what they want to do on their defense. All right, Buffalo Bills 30. This is an interesting pick because I always want to mock him a tackle, and I always want to mock him a defensive lineman, especially an edge pass rusher. I think a linebacker is a possibility with Matt Milano becoming a free agent. But I went running back here with Alabama's Najee Harris. And running back's not a big need for the Buffalo Bills. They've got Devin Singletary. They've got Zach Moss. I think the plan is Zach Moss is their starter, and Singletary's kind of their backup that can come in and catch passes and that. And I think Singletary showed this year that, he's just a bit player. Zach Moss showed that he can be capable, but he's not a dynamic back. And we saw with the Bills, they didn't really trust their running game, and so they threw a lot, and they had Josh Allen throw the ball quite a bit, and he was very successful at it. But and so I don't think they're going into this draft or this offseason with running back being a huge area of need. But sitting there at 30 with Najee Harris available, that's going to be very hard to pass up. So you got Najee Harris, gives them a true dynamic running back, a guy that can catch the ball. So not only is he a good runner, shows good contact balance, good lateral agility, but he's tremendous in the passing game. And so not only do you have to cover Stephon Diggs, one of the best receivers in the NFL, you got to worry about John Brown's and Gabriel Davis's speed, but now you got to worry about Najee Harris lining up against your linebackers. And not to mention Josh Allen's got a cannon for an arm and can take off running too. And I think continue to build around Josh Allen. Brian Daboll comes from Alabama. I think he might have been there with Najee Harris when he was a freshman, so he's probably familiar with him. I'm sure he can call up Nick Saban and say, hey, what do you think about Najee Harris? But I think that would give them another weapon, and Josh Allen, as good as he is, continues to need weapons. All right, with the Kansas City Chiefs, I have them going offensive line. And I know it's cliche, they just got destroyed by the Bucs because of their offensive line. Their offensive line was ravished because of issue. They didn't have Eric Fisher, their left tackle. They didn't have Mitchell Schwartz, their starting right tackle. They didn't have their starting right guard who opted out of the season. Those guys are going to be back. So their offensive line, just getting those three guys back, is going to be much better. One area that isn't going to get any better unless they address it is the center position. And that's why I have at pick 31, the Kansas City Chiefs taking Landon Dickerson, the center out of Alabama. Dickerson was a guy that was the best, throughout most of the season until he got hurt, the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. Physical, big, he was the heart and soul of that defense. He was the best offensive lineman on the best offensive line in college football. And one thing we got to remember about Andy Reid, as much as, we see speed and they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year, Andy Reid at his core wants to draft off. He loves the line, offensive and defensive line. And I think that's why a guy like Dickerson available here, they say, hey, we need to improve the offensive line. We can improve the center position. Let's get Dickerson in there to solidify the middle. He'll be the best center we've had since Rodney Hudson left in free agency a few years back. Give him some help. Protect Patrick Mahomes, because when Mahomes is not getting hit, he's amazing. All right, last pick of the first round, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champions. What are they going to do? I have them going defensive line. I have them taking Washington's defensive tackle, Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle out of Washington. Now, the defense was the strong suit. It's hard to say because their offense was so good, but the defense was good. We saw what they did to Patrick Mahomes. Vita Vea, Ndamukong Suh, JPP, Shaq Barrett. Well, Suh's a free agent, or going to be up there. They needed some depth, and I think because of Suh's contract situation, because of other guys, I think they could part ways with him. And so I think Onwuzurike would be a guy that would be a good fit for what they want to do. They could kind of, he's not going to be Ndamukong Suh, but I think they can kind of play him in a lot of those roles. He was a guy that played at Washington out of position. They played him in their 3-4 defense as their nose tackle, and that's not his spot. His spot is more of that 3 technique. But he's got that experience, and he wasn't even bad at the nose tackle. And I think he's a guy that you can kind of move up and down the offensive line like they did with Ndamukong Suh. I mean, there was times that Suh rushes off the edge, and he runs a 3 technique. And Todd Bowles likes to kind of play games with his front four. He doesn't like to, doesn't traditionally have a lot of edge rushers. I know he's got JPP and Shaq Barrett, but he likes to kind of blitz and move guys around. And that's why I think Onwuzurike would be a good fit for what they want to do. Well, that's going to go ahead and do it for this mock draft. Make sure that you follow me on social media at draft_Brian. Make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until next mock draft.